When it comes to quality sleep, Ashley has you covered with top mattress brands at winning prices and with special financing options available. You can snooze now and pay later. Plus, your mattress purchase helps give the gift of better sleep to children in need and U.S. Special Operations Forces. Visit your local Ashley store or shop online today and make every snooze count. Financing is subject to credit approval. See store or ashley.com for details.
Dreaming of overseas adventures or connecting more deeply with family from afar? Rosetta Stone bridges the language gap.
I've tried others, but Rosetta Stone's immersive lessons and voice feedback technology are game changers.
Dive into 25 languages by learning intuitively, just like when you were a kid. And here's the holiday sparkle. Grab a lifetime membership now and save 50%. Gift yourself the world. Head to rosettastone.com now and save 50%.
Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me, as always, is a man that knows that defeat does not exist in this dojo. Here is the captain.
Put him in the body bag, Johnny. Yeah! It's good to be seen, and it's good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sweeping the leg.
Today we are still sipping on this fine Imperial Stout from Tactical called My Llorona. This is an Imperial Stout, 12% ABV with ancho peppers, chilies, sour oranges, and hibiscus. This was the bronze medal winner at the 2021 New York International Beer Competition. So you know it's good. Garage grade. 4 3/4 bottle caps out of 5. Here's some cheers to our good friends. First up, a cheers and a big Ron Swanson please and thank you to Mark in London, who says he is sending us some kudos for our stellar work on our John Bonet series.
And a big shout out to Margaret in Lansing, Michigan.
Next, here we go, Captain. This is a triple cheers to Elizabeth, Daniel, and Liz, all living in their own domiciles in the land of parts unknown.
And a big we like your jib to Traeger and Taylor in northern Alaska. And a big we like your jib to Samantha in Cameron, California.
Next, a long distance cheers to Fiona in Kildare, Ireland. And last but certainly not least, we have Dawn in San Diego, who says we should produce a John Bonet TV documentary. How about that? Lots of praise for our coverage on John Bonet. Everyone we just mentioned, they helped us out with this week's beer fund, and for that, we thank you.
Yeah, the only problem is we have faces for radio, but asses for the runway. So thank you so much for the BWRUN Beer Run Fund, and that is enough of the business.
All right, everybody, gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime. When we left off yesterday, Captain, we asked the simple question, where's Jimmy? And we were leading up to a possible break in the case, hinting that there would be a break in this case. Now, the break would come nearly 3 months after his disappearance, and it would come at the suspicions of one woman, Suzanne Shinehouse. But she was not suspicious in regards to Jimmy Rice's case. No, she was suspicious for other reasons. And in fact, her involvement in this case actually started before Jimmy Rice even went missing. And this was in August and September of 1995, when Susan Shinehouse reported to the local police several times that items from her home, including a handgun and some jewelry, were missing from her residence. Per court records, the trailer is housed on a property that's owned by a one David Santana. So no relation to Susan Shinehouse. But what we have here, Captain, is there's a situation where Susan Shinehouse, she's pretty well-to-do and owns a horse ranch and a large amount of property. So she has people working for her on her properties, and some of the other people in this general area are sharing some of those workers working at their properties as well. She has this situation where some of her items are missing from her home. Again, these are items of value, a handgun and some jewelry. After filing multiple police reports and passing along suspicions to the authorities, their hands are tied. They cannot pursue any of the people that she's suspicious of. So she tells one of her friends about what's going on. Hey, there's some items missing from my home. This is what I think's happening, but I don't really have any proof. I can't get the police to act on it because, again, there's no evidence. I have no proof here in any of my suspicions. Her friend tells her, why don't you go talk to this psychic? Maybe she can direct you to your items. Maybe they're misplaced. Maybe somebody did take them. Who knows? So she decides to go to the psychic, and the psychic kind of confirms some of Suzanne's suspicions, saying you will find the items that you're looking for on a trailer located in this specific area. Now, the trailer that you're referring to, Captain, would later be referred to as either the Avocado Grove trailer or the Horse Farm trailer. What she does here is the man that lives in this trailer,
Matt Foley,
and works as a handyman and a farmhand on her property, his name is Juan Carlos Chavez. She sends him out to do some errands, keep him busy for the day, and this is on December 5th, 1995. She takes her son with her, his name's Edward Shinehouse, and a locksmith, and they open up the trailer to go inside to see if they can find the items that are missing from Susan's home. There inside the trailer, in plain sight, they find the missing handgun. Now, this was a handgun that she had purchased in April of 1989. Again, she finds it in plain view on the counter in the kitchen opposite the trailer door. After finding the gun, her and her son continued to look inside the trailer, looking for the missing jewelry. When they discovered inside of a closet area a book bag, which was partially open. Looking inside the bag, Suzanne saw papers and books. The work appeared to be in a child's handwriting, and she noticed the name Jimmy Ryce on some of the papers. She observed this name on one of the books as well. Now, this is going to send off major red flags for the Shinehouses.
Yeah, because in the local community, everybody's asking, where is Jimmy?
Where's Jimmy? That's the common phrase going around town and has been for almost 3 months now. So everybody knew the name Jimmy Ryce. In fact, it was later said that on that day, September 11, 1995, he went from being not just Dawn and Claudine's son, but the son of the whole community looking for this child, Jimmy Ryce. So immediately, Mrs. Shinehouse notifies the FBI, saying, hey, this is some weird stuff that I just found in this dude's trailer who's working for me, this Juan Carlos Chavez.
But also this book bag in general has been talked about, like you were saying. His mother was saying, well, look, he would throw down his book bag and run. So you got this whole community going, where is Jimmy? And you find this book bag with all his school belongings.
Yeah. I mean, just strange stuff. Not what she was anticipating, right? Even though she is suspicious of this man, she was looking to find other items in his trailer and did so in the course, but finding this item as well. She contacts the FBI, and so the FBI and the Metro-Dade police show up on scene. They view the items, they take a look around in the trailer, and now they're waiting for Juan Carlos Chavez to return to this property. And he does so a little after 7 p.m. on the evening of December 6th, where he is quickly surrounded and arrested without incident. He's patted down. They read him his Miranda rights, and now it's time to take this man in for interrogation.
I wonder if he had at some point realized that he's been duped and they were going through his belongings.
So who is this man? Well, 28-year-old Chavez first arrived in the United States in 1991, this after a raft ride from Cuba to South Florida with 2 other individuals. He had previously served time in Cuba after attempting to steal a boat from a military base in 1986, this during a previous attempt to flee the country, for which he was caught and sentenced to 4 years in prison, but only served 1 year and 11 months. Chavez had served in the Cuban military after he was drafted. He was granted permanent residency in 1993 under the Cuban Adjustment Act, which gave automatic residency to most Cubans after a year in the United States. While a criminal history could prevent residency from being granted, we have a situation where the United States and Cuba had no diplomatic relations, so a criminal check was nearly impossible. According to an immigration and naturalization official, quote, "I guess they felt like this was a military-related case, so he got his green card," end quote. It is worth noting that once Chavez was identified, the Rice family, I have such respect for Don and Claudine Rice and all of the Rice family, and it breaks my heart to see what they were forced to go through. But these are smart and understanding people, and I think this just kind of shows who they really are. The Rice family very quickly denounced what they called stupid prejudice, requesting that the community ignore Chavez's Cuban roots. As Don Rice said, quote, "Some people have come to the family to say that they are ashamed of being Cuban and Hispanic. I just want to make clear that evil comes in many ways. There is nothing to apologize for. Our fight is with predators."
Yeah, now that they have Chavez in custody, they're going to be able to interrogate him, which I believe the interrogation went for roughly 55 hours.
It took place over the course of 2 days, yeah. And this was some pretty intense stuff. It was so lengthy, due in part to the different stories that Chavez is going to provide law enforcement to try to explain away why he is in possession of the book bag of a missing 9-year-old child.
Right.
So his first story is that he simply found the book bag, and he found it in a field, and he brought it back to his trailer, and he's had it ever since. I don't know what date he claims to have found it or why he decided to bring a child's book bag back to his trailer. That's not important, because as quickly as police explained to him, look, we're not buying that story. Could you try to prove to us that that is, in fact, how you came to be in possession of this book bag? He quickly moves on to another story. All right, so now we're interrogating, and I don't know how many hours have gone by yet, Captain, but now we have a different story, and we see this time and time again. He may have provided detectives with 10 stories, a dozen stories, maybe dozens of stories, but we see this time and time again with certain types of offenders, where it starts off as, oh, you got me in cuffs and you're asking me the hard questions. Starts off as, I had nothing to do with this, to then a completely different story hours later of, yeah, I'm involved, but I'm still kind of innocent, and let me tell you why. So one of the stories he comes up with is that when he was out working and driving for work on September 11, after 3 p.m., he's returning back to his place of work when he accidentally struck and hit a boy with his vehicle, crushing the boy between the vehicle he's driving and a guardrail. And he didn't think that anybody would believe him about what had happened, that this was simply an accident. So he decided to conceal the body of this boy that he hit on the side of the road. Well, there's some problems with that story, Mr. Chavez. First of all, there's no damage to the vehicle that you were driving, and there's no damage to any guardrail or fence that we can find. Even though we have him take us to the scene of this quote-unquote accident, we can't find any evidence of there being any kind of vehicle accident at all.
That's my favorite in the cases, is where they know the person's lying and they still have to do their due diligence and go out. Like here, Chavez, oh yeah, you say there was a wreck. Let's go out to the scene. Nope. There's no evidence of the wreck. Or probably my favorite one that we've ever covered is when Casey Anthony took detectives to her work, and they go all the way there and I'll go down a couple hallways and do a couple things, and then she turns around and goes, I don't work here.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Turns around and says, I don't work here. I lied.
Yeah.
And that's where, sometimes we have situations. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that CSI is real and these TV shows are real and that's the way that things work. We know better than that.
They're not real?
We know better than that here in the garage, and the people that tune in know better than that as well. But this is where I have to believe that entertainment is mirroring reality. When you see the annoyed detective that just looks at the guy after they prove to him that, okay, your first story didn't work, your fifth story didn't work, this last one that we had to come out here to location to make sure that you didn't get in a vehicle accident didn't work. Where you see the annoyed detective who goes, all right, care to try this again, Mr. Chavez?
Yeah, but here's where I think Chavez's brain was, right? I found the book bag. Then when he says I found the book bag, I think he started figuring out, well, they probably know my route that I take for work. And so once he started assuming that law enforcement went, they probably know certain things about my schedule already, based on possibly they talked to my employers. And I think that's why he ended up changing his story initially to go, oh, well, yeah, I happened to be on my route for work, and I came across this kid. And that is partial truth.
Over the course of this interrogation, and after having been repeatedly advised of his Miranda rights and then waiving them, this is when Chavez finally provided, the real version after providing several versions of his involvement in Jimmy's disappearance. We only get to the truth after the physical evidence resulting from their investigation that they've had so far and anything that they've discussed with Chavez totally discredited each version of events that Juan Carlos gave to the investigators, to which he finally agreed to tell the truth. However, Chavez explained that before he would disclose the location of Jimmy's remains, he wanted the officers to guarantee that he would, in fact, receive the death penalty for his involvement in this case. Now, the detectives told this man, look, we can't guarantee you. That's not the kind of thing we can make happen from our position. But given the nature of the crime and what they suspected he was about to tell them, they didn't think that it was going to be difficult for this man to receive the death penalty.
Yeah, hold on a second. So normally what happens, and I'm guessing it's normally, because that's normally when we cover a case, that's what happens, is you have a situation where somebody wants to confess, but what they want to take off the table is the death penalty.
Yes.
This rectum socket, he's like, hey, I will tell you what happened, but you got to keep the death penalty on the table.
He wants to guarantee that the death penalty will be imposed in his case. Exactly right.
Yeah, so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to tell you what happened, but now you need to charge me and you need to go after the death penalty. Very interesting. He
also wanted to make it clear to detectives that the events that took place would not have happened had he not been sexually battered by a relative in Cuba. So he goes on to tell these detectives after a quick break. He walks into the room after using the restroom and says, what do you want to know? I'll tell you what happened to Jimmy Ryce. And he proceeded to admit that he abducted Jimmy at gunpoint, traveled back to the horse ranch with him where he sexually assaulted Jimmy before finally shooting him. Now, this is when detectives say, okay, great, thank you for telling us the truth, but we're going to need the details.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to need the details, and we need to find the boy's remains.
They probably said, look, we need the deets.
Well, Chavez said that when he was out working, driving around, that he observed some young children playing in water, this on his way home from Home Depot at approximately 3 p.m. on September 11. He said some of the boys were wearing just their underwear, and as he saw the young boys wearing just the underwear, they're getting wet, he took an interest in them. After observing the children, he said that he drove off, and a short while later, he was still picturing the children. And he decided that at some point he wanted to abduct a child. So while this is occurring, he's driving, and he says that he sees another young boy. He sees a boy by himself. This later turns out to be Jimmy Ryce.
Right.
At this point, he's feeling something sexual, and he wants to take this young boy that he sees. And he says that he used the gun, the stolen gun that he has. This is a .38 caliber gun, and he pulls up and he blocks Jimmy Rice's path with the vehicle, steps out and points the gun at the boy and says, "Do you want to die?" He grabs the kid by the shirt, pulls him into the vehicle, tells him to get down on like the floorboard area of the vehicle so that he wouldn't be seen by other passengers. And he drives him back to his trailer, or the trailer that he's staying in at the time. And this is where the rape takes place. Now,
this is horrific.
I don't know and don't care to go into the details of what happens at the trailer at this point, but one thing that I strongly question is how much he was willing to admit to, because approximately 4 hours takes place between him getting to the trailer and the time that he decides to leave the trailer. Now, I want everybody out there I want to be very clear about this. The following story is Juan Carlos Chavez's story, as he claims it to be. And we will go through this a little more here in a minute, but I'm going to tell it from start to finish. But I want to be clear. I don't believe 100% this is exactly what took place and what happened. He says that about 4 hours after bringing the boy to the trailer, that he decided to let Jimmy go. He was going to return him to either near his home or the location where he abducted the boy.
Well, initially, he also does say, that his objective initially was to just abduct and to molest a child.
He says that as he approached the area that he was going to drop the boy off, there was a strong police presence there, and this caused him to panic. It spooked him, and he didn't know what to do, so he decided to return with the boy to the trailer. Once back at the trailer, they're there for I don't know how long. I mean, we're getting into the nighttime hours now. There's a lot of police out looking for Jimmy at this time, and there are helicopters that they are using. And I don't know if it was a helicopter specific to the search for Jimmy Ryce, or if it just happened to be a helicopter that flew over the area, flew over top of the trailer where Jimmy and this man are. But he gets up. Again, he's kind of paranoid by this point, according to his own words. He's looking out the window to see what's going on, and he says that's when Jimmy made a run for the door. And so Chavez reacts. He's got a gun. He shoots the boy, shooting him in the back, claiming that he held on to the boy to, I guess, comfort him as he lie there dying.
Well, and you see this a lot of times with criminals where right when they commit the crime, they become hyper paranoid.
Yeah, we saw that, and we actually had the words of Dennis Rader and several other killers that we've talked about here in the garage where, Dennis Rader said that as soon as he committed the murders, he fully expected police to arrive at his doorstep within minutes or hours of committing that crime. And I believe we had the same thing happen with Ed Kemper when he killed his grandparents. And when nobody showed up, Ed Kemper just called it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There's that immediate paranoia that sets in according to these types that, hey, everybody knows what I just did. All of a sudden, they magically know.
Yeah, and not all killers, but just it seems to be a percentage of them where crime happens and then paranoid.
Some of them don't get scared at all, which is completely bizarre. But then he goes on to say that he needed a place to hide the body, so he's out driving around looking for either a location or something to help him conceal the body of this boy, and which he found a barrel, one of those large metal drums. He loaded it into the vehicle. I believe this was a van or a truck. I'm sorry, a van. Returns to the trailer, places the boy's body in that barrel for the meantime, and he decides later that he's going to need to bury the remains, to which he ends up attempting to use a backhoe on one of the properties that he's working. He can't get the backhoe to work properly. It's malfunctioning for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So he decides that he's going to have to dismember the boy, and he buries, I'm going to use air quotes there, buries the remains in cement in several large planters. He was hoping that the cement and the planters, of course, would make it so that the remains were never to be detected. You fast forward to early December, where the Shinehouses make their way into his trailer and find these things, this damning evidence that is going to lead police directly to the killer of Jimmy Ryce. And that's one of those weird things that, there's a lot of weird things in any of these cases. And in this case, there are those weird things. But here's a case, Captain, where nearly 3 months later, this guy, this monster, for whatever reason, made a conscious decision to hold on to this book bag.
Yeah.
Had this book bag never been found,
he was working on long division.
I wonder if we would have ever known what really happened here to Jimmy Ryce.
Probably not.
Because there was nothing connecting Juan Carlos Chavez to him other than that book bag. This was, in every sense of the phrase, a stranger abduction, according to Juan Carlos Chavez. Now, I want to point out some things that I call into question in regards to Mr. Chavez's story. I like how he is constantly minimizing his culpability in this case, right? He presents his story, and he presents himself as an impulsive human being who made a mistake versus a monster, a child predator. And that's really what he is at the end of the day.
And a piece of shit.
The statement of he was going to return Jimmy, but, I panicked. I got scared. I didn't know what to do when I saw the police in that area. He claimed that he only had to kill him because the boy tried to escape. He said that he had to dismember the boy because the backhoe wouldn't work and he was unable to bury the boy. You ever heard of a shovel? The other thing, too, he says he only was going to molest the boy or he was molested, and that's why he wanted to abduct and rape a boy. Again, minimizing his own culpability in any of this situations. There's always a reason that led him to do the next despicable, disgusting act that he decided to do himself. And the other thing, too, that we have to keep in mind, according to law enforcement and the courts, these items were reported stolen many times, several times. In August and September, what was the purpose for him stealing that gun in the first place? Why did he happen to have that gun with him in the vehicle on the day that he's working when he just so happened to stumble across a Jimmy Ryce walking alone by himself after he just happened to see some boys playing in the water together, barely wearing any clothing?
Right.
I start to see a situation where this man decided he needed a gun for some reason at some point, and he decided to steal one. Mm-hmm. I see a situation where I think this guy could have been driving around looking for a boy. And he could have been looking for a boy for weeks or months. And it wasn't until he got that gun that he thought that he was going to get what he was after. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you look forward to the holidays? Maybe you struggle with seasonal blues. This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or even anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot, something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/garage today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/garage.
Rosetta Stone is the language learning program with a lasting impact. I've been using their app to learn French, and it's not just about memorizing words, but actually having real conversations. And it's not just French. They offer 25 languages. Right now, Rosetta Stone has an awesome holiday deal, 50% off their lifetime membership. Every language, unlimited access forever. For anyone keen on diving deep into a new language, check out rosettastone.com. It's a game changer.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
All right, we're back. Cheers, mates. Hope everybody's having a good week.
Cheers to you, Captain. Now, sadly, the Jimmy Ryce story did not end the way that anybody wanted it to end. Just to add to the sadness and add to the devastation here, the trailer and the property where the remains were recovered of this boy,
right,
were less than 2 miles away from his home. And all this time, those answers were much closer than they thought. All those search efforts never led them to Jimmy Ryce.
Yeah, but sometimes I think the world, the universe, the powers that be, try to make things right. Boy goes missing. We don't know what happens. These items went missing before the boy went missing. But once she then seeks out some confirmation about her beliefs, a psychic tells her, hey, I have this energy saying that there's items and you'll find them in this trailer. And like you said, she finds this gun. She finds the book bag. I think, one, it wasn't a mistake that he just left the book bag in there. That was kind of some souvenir. But also, like you said, I would lean to the idea that he might have been tracking these individuals and tracking these kids because they get dropped off on a main route. That's the main route you would drive. You wouldn't be driving through these neighborhoods to and from Home Depot. You take main streets. But if you're on the prowl looking for children, well, follow a couple buses. See who they drop off.
Right.
So I'm with you where I think this was something that he thought about, maybe fantasized about, maybe even try to, look, I'll try to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he even tried to suppress these fantasies. But then like you were saying, I think this was premeditated.
Maybe he even pulled up in front of a kid once or twice before and chickened out at the last minute.
Yeah, you see that all the time.
So I think really what we see here is what we've seen so many times before, where he's just trying to minimize his, yes, I did this, but I did A because of this happening. I did B because that happened, and so on and so forth. And it just continues on and on and on.
Well, yeah, I think that's maybe where we disagree, because he wants the death penalty to be on the table. He wants to be sentenced to death. So that's kind of odd motivation. That's a kind of an odd motive to change your story, to minimize your story. You think, if anything, you would want to appear more of a monster, so you can guarantee that you get that death penalty.
He could have waived his appeals. He didn't bother to do that, though. He appealed this thing like crazy. And that's the thing. Look, when you have somebody, when you're talking about a child predator and a child killer, I mean, the worst of the worst, and you and I, we just will not have the ability to crawl inside the minds of these people. And
I've seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but
what's that?
I said I've seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but I don't know if they can make me small enough to get inside there.
But when we look at these things, it's very fair for us to look at his words, his statements, and his actions and question every single one of them. Did he say something dumb like, hey, I want to make sure that you put me to death? Did he want to throw that out there just so, hey, when we get to court, I want everybody to know that only a person outside of his mind would be saying, hey, I want you to put me to death. That There's something wrong with me, clearly. So, we should question everything that this type of person would do, because he's shown us what he is capable of. Now, the aftermath of this thing, Captain, as we said, Jimmy really became the child of a community, and there were 600 people, nearly 600 people that gathered to honor this boy who died too soon at his funeral. Reverend Leonard Brasso, who led the service at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church, said during the course of his sermon, because Jimmy Ryce was with us, his contemporaries, his classmates and teammates and children he never knew, all are becoming safer from predators and pedophiles who would prey on them. Because Jimmy Ryce was with us, awareness of the perils that stalk our streets and playgrounds and schools and sanctuaries, places we had hoped were safe, is being raised up to a new and higher level.
One, and it's really good, this community, but also his family, his mom and dad, to say, hey, look, there's this tragedy, this tragic thing that happened to our family, but we're going to make sure that Jimmy Rice's name is synonymous with good in this world.
Yeah, and when people have a free moment, I would encourage everyone to go to jimmyrice.org, and Rice is RYCE.org, and you can see the Jimmy Ryce Center that was set up by his parents and the community. And they really do so many things there that it's difficult for us in our limited time to explain everything that they do. But even after their son's body was discovered, after the funeral, his parents, Claudine and Don Rice, worked to improve the national system of tracking missing children by using both the internet and greater cooperation among law enforcement agencies. Claudine Rice said, quote, publicity caught the man, so she dedicated herself to generating more publicity and public cooperation in missing child cases. By the time of Jimmy's funeral, a petition that would make it easier for law enforcement agencies across the country to coordinate search efforts had already amassed over 300,000 signatures. Florida's U.S. delegation filed the Jimmy Rice ASAP Child Assistance Act to make it easier to post photos of missing children in federal and state buildings. This brings us, Captain, to 2014. At 8:02 p.m. on Wednesday, February 12, 2014, Juan Carlos Chavez lie on a gurney in a brightly lit room with leather straps around his wrists and ankles and IVs for the lethal injection inserted into his arms. He did not give us a last statement, so to speak. It actually came in the form of Chavez's last statement came in the form of a rambling, handwritten note composed hours before his execution. In the note, he didn't apologize to the Rices, nor did he claim he was innocent of the crime for which he would be executed. Instead, he wrote of his faith and his wish that Christ's love reach those who, in their pain, desire my death. No word or man will rob me of my peace today. He was executed on that day. His last meal consisted of a ribeye steak, French fries, a fruit cup, strawberry ice cream, and mango juice.
It just always drives me nuts when they eat something or something strange like mango juice. I like mango juice. Right when I hear that this son of a bitch drank some mango juice, I never want to drink mango juice again. I don't want to be anywhere close to an animal like this.
At 8:17 p.m., Chavez was declared dead. Around 24 reporters gathered in front of the Florida State Prison in preparation for the execution. Sadly, Jimmy's mother, Claudine, and his half-sister had already passed away by this point, but Jimmy's father and half-brother were both in attendance. None of the 19 witnesses showed any emotion during the execution, though pain was apparent in Don Rice's eyes. Immediately after this execution, Captain, Don Rice gives a statement that's videotaped, recorded, and you can find it still to this day, and I believe you can find it at jimmyrice.org as well. It's also on YouTube. Don Rice is addressing pedophiles who might abduct children.
Yeah.
And he says, do not kill the child. Do not kill the child. Because if you kill the child, people will not forget. People will not forgive. We will hunt you down and we will put you to death. That being a warning to anybody that would abduct a child, letting them know, you still have a chance to return this kid, to drop them off somewhere, to get them out of your possession. You always have that opportunity until you don't. Don't kill the child. This is what happens. And he goes on to say that if there was ever a man that deserved to be put to death, it was Chavez, who killed his son. Now, Don Rice passed away last year, and he did so much great work before his passing. His wife did so much great work before hers, and their son, Jimmy's half-brother, continues to do that great work today. Again, we have the Jimmy Ryce Center, they do so many different things. Plus, there was the 1998 Jimmy Ryce Act. This was something that was put into our system to create and change the system so that sexually violent predators can remain in state custody long after finishing their prison sentences, so that they would be evaluated and it would be determined if they were ready for release or not. It's a way to keep them housed in a facility that might not be an actual state prison or be monitored once they are out. I want to bring up here, Captain, a quote from Colleen Nick. Colleen Nick is the mother of Morgan Nick, a girl who disappeared and has never been found or located since her disappearance, a case that we have covered here in the garage. And the quote is, "I remember standing in the middle of the chaos, thinking I wish I had a book to tell me what to do. Child abductions are rare. Stranger child abductions are even more rare. Very few people, very few law enforcement agencies actually know what to do in the proper order to do them when this does occur, because they are rare." Don Rice said that, unfortunately, when they started their investigation, he wanted to see them start their investigation, but they appeared to be starting from scratch because they had never investigated a child stranger abduction. Law enforcement, the Department of Justice, with the help of several family members and parents of missing and abducted children, got together and they created a book called When Your Child is Missing, a Family Survival Guide. And this is a pretty substantial book with a lot of great information in it and a lot of great resources. There's even a to-do list for you for the first 24 hours, the first 48 hours, things that you should be doing to help find and locate your child. Now, God forbid that any of us ever need it. I'm just simply pointing out that it is there. It is available for free for anybody that wants it. You can find it by simply Googling that title, When Your Child is Missing, a Family Survival Guide. And again, if anybody wants to find out more about the Jimmy Ryce Center, the website is jimmyrice.org. Obviously, one of many things that they want to do is increase public awareness of sexual predators. They want to help bring kids home like so many other organizations do. There's a bevy of resources there available on their website. There's also ways for you to get involved and ways that you can help others. Now, one thing that the Jimmy Ryce Center does is that they provide AKC bloodhounds free to law enforcement to help find abducted and lost persons and children. And according to their website, they say a bloodhound has 60 times the scent power of a German Shepherd and is the only dog that can follow a human trail more than a few hours old. A bloodhound is your single best bet for bringing a child abducted by a predator home alive. At the Jimmy Ryce Center, we believe that Jimmy would be alive today if a bloodhound had immediately been brought into the search for our son. I am happy to announce and say here and thankful to everybody who have donated this week and in previous weeks to our beer fund. And we've said in the past that we have what we call spillover money. The captain and I call it spillover money, and we've used some of that spillover money to go to a lot of great different that help law enforcement and help victims of crimes. And one thing we were able to do this week in honor of Jimmy Ryce and the Jimmy Ryce Center was to make a donation to the Jimmy Ryce Center. They say that it takes about $1,000 for the center to provide these AKC bloodhounds to a law enforcement agency. And because of all of you out there, we were able to make a donation of $1,000 to the Jimmy Ryce Center. And before we wrap up today, we'd like to leave you with the words of Don Rice, a short clip from his statement given to the media after his son's killer was put to death.
Don't kill the child. Don't kill the child, because if you do, people will not forget. They will not forgive. We will hunt you down and we will put you to death.
I want to thank everybody so much for joining us here in the garage. We'd be nothing without you.
We are nothing.
We are nothing with you, so without you would be extra nothing.
Less than nothing.
Colonel, do we have any recommended reading for this week?
Yes, we do, Captain. This week we are recommending The Cases That Haunt Us by the great John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. Look, call them what you want, but don't call them open and shut cases. Did Lizzie Borden murder her own father and stepmother? Was Jack the Ripper actually the Duke of Clarence? Who killed JonBenet Ramsey? And so on and so on. It goes on and on and on. Check out this book because it's by the great John Douglas and Mark Olshaker, who explore those great cases as well as several others. And you can find that recommendation along with several others at truecrimegarage.com on our recommended page.
And if you're looking for more True Crime Garage, check us out on the Stitcher app. We have a premium show called Off the Record. It comes out every other week. If you don't know, you need to know. And until next week, be good, be kind.
And don't litter.
You can live out your MasterChef dreams when you find a professional on Angie to tackle your dream kitchen remodel. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Visit Angie.com. You can do this when you Angie that.